Hello and welcome to the Buffy Book Club. I wanted to devote some time on this final day of posts to discuss books that were written by some of the contributors. Now, I don't have all of them here, and I unfortunately didn't think to grab the books of the non-Buffy writers. We had a bunch of those. Rob Wiersema was one of our contributors, and he's written several novels. Chrissy Calhoun wrote A Guide to Vampire Diaries. Susie Gardner wrote a guide to Glee. Evan Munday wrote The Fabulous Dead Kit Detective Agency. And these are books that I mentioned all the way along the way. I know I've just forgotten a whole bunch of them. Becca Wilcott wrote a book on True Blood, a companion guide to True Blood. And these are books that I mentioned as I was going. But what I wanted to focus on today are the books that were Buffy related, specifically Buffy related, and also specifically in my personal collection, because I didn't do a lot of planning of this particular post, and I should have, and gotten ones. Now, also there are a couple that were missing when I went to my bookshelf, and I don't know where they are. I think I've lent them out or something. So anyway, I've got a lot to get through, so I'm going to do them really quickly, and I apologize in advance. But first, Bite Me. No, not really. This is my book. Book club over, the end. This is really the only one you need, right there. Okay, not really. In the Slayage conference that I have mentioned several times, that is run from the Whedon Studies Association, they have what is called a Mr. Pointy Award. And while I will never be nominated for a Mr. Pointy Award because I'm not academic, many of my contributors have either been nominated for awards, have won the award, or will be nominated in the future because they are so fabulous. And so a lot of these are actually award-winning books, I must say, have won the Mr. Pointy, and really, does it get better than that? So, after you bought Bite Me, I have a few others. Now, okay, I'm going right immediately from the get-go. I'm going outside the parameters here, but Investigating Firefly and Serenity is written by, or edited by, Rhonda Wilcox and Tanya Cochran. These were two of our amazing contributors, and we had them now above my computer. I have my complete schedule of the Buffy rewatch, which just occurred to me I'm going to be taking down. Anyway, I am now quickly scanning it to see which weeks did they do. But Tanya Cochran was here throughout the summer. She did a ton of ones, and I love Tanya. And she's also one of the organizers of the Slayage conference. Rhonda Wilcox, who I referred to as the mother of Buffy studies throughout the rewatch, is the other editor. And these are just some amazing essays on Firefly and Serenity. And I'm sure there are a lot of brown coats out there. If you have not watched Firefly, why not? Now that we're finished Buffy and we're almost finished Angel, because Angel's going to continue through January, February, this is the next one that you have to be watching. All right. And speaking of Rhonda Wilcox, Fighting the Forces was one of the first of the academic books. Am I holding this weird glare here? Was one of the original academic books, and it is co-edited with David Lavery, who was our first contributor to the Buffy, or guest contributor, and also one of our last. So he was at the beginning and he was at the end, which was fabulous. And he and Rhonda are the two that run the Slayage Journal, which is several essays. You can go to the website, and he is also, the two of them have done this book. This is a great book, and this was it was the first Buffy academic book that I read and realized, wow, this actually is not as difficult as I thought it was. It's not impenetrable at all. This is great stuff. So if you thought that the essays that were written throughout the rewatch were insightful, wait till you read these. These are fabulous. So I really recommend that. And one of my absolute favorites, also by the fabulous Rhonda Wilcox. How many times am I going to use the word fabulous? apparently is my word of the day. Why Buffy matters. I was interviewed in the summer and asked about the various Buffy academic books that were out there, and someone said if there was one that you recommended people to start with, what would it be? And I said, Why Buffy Matters by Rhonda Wilcox. This is the art of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's got the cover that will make you want to cry if you know what is going on there. If you are obviously made it through the rewatch, then you do know what's going on there. And it is such a good book. So well written. Rhonda Wilcox, I first saw her at Slayage 3 in Arkansas giving a paper, and it was just amazing. She is so dynamic, and her writing is as dynamic as she is in person, and I cannot recommend this highly enough. So if you're going to start with one of the academic books, I think this is probably the one you want to start with. It is so, so well done. On the other end of the scale, as far as difficulty, this is often the one that is considered one of the more difficult ones, and don't believe that if that's what you've heard, because this is written by Matthew Pateman, who is a very, very good friend of mine, and I noticed as I was pulling them off my shelf that this has sticky notes on it. And that's because he's the one that I did the paper at the last Slayage with, and I was actually looking through his book at the time. I was rereading it, trying to find something that he had written that I could use in my side of the argument and to use his own words against him, and as you can see, I found some. Anyway, actually there's one where I put a post-it here and I said, it's like Lost. If you want to see what he wrote that is exactly like Lost, then you're going to have to buy Matthew's book, The Aesthetics of Culture in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and turn to page 37, and he pretty much describes Lost in one paragraph without knowing it, since he hasn't watched the show, and I've tried to get him to. Anyway, this is an amazing book, and if you loved Restless, this is the book we were talking about when I said someone's written a book-length analysis of it. That's this book. The first a couple of chapters open about the aesthetics of culture in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and then he uses Restless as his way of basically explaining exactly what his thesis is. Brilliant book. Highly recommend it. Now, a book that I think a lot of you would really enjoy, and actually it's in this pile even though it isn't specifically Buffy, is this one by Jennifer K. Stuller. She came in, we first read her stuff on Prophecy Girl. I'm looking over here. Prophecy Girl. And she was sort of our season ender. I'm pretty sure she came in near the end of season 2 and she was at the end of season 3 as well. Yes, she did Graduation Day as well. And this is such a great book. It is an examination of ink-stained Amazon cinematic warriors of tough women in cinema, which is exactly what I was saying in my report on the finale, in my analysis of the finale yesterday that went up last night. And this is such a good book, and she looks at all different kinds. She's, of course, got Xena and Buffy. Just great, and it's thematic. So the birth of modern mythology and the mother of female superheroes, all the way to the conclusion, which is called Where Do We Go From Here? Love. This is such a great book. I bought this at the last Slayage and read it pretty much the moment I got it, and it was so well done. And I know a couple of other people who do not read academic books, and they read this. So it's not really, it's certainly not impenetrable at all. This is actually quite accessible and one of the most accessible of all of the books. So I highly recommend this one if you're looking at more of a generalized look at tough girls in cinema and comics and television. This is the one. Lorna Jowett is someone who came in, let's see, where did she first come in? Well, we've seen her throughout, and she was right near the end. She just did Dirty Girls a couple of weeks ago. And let's see, The I in Team, Goodbye Iowa, This Year's Girl. She writes amazing stuff. And I read this book actually before I saw her at the first Slayage that I went to. This is Sex and the Slayer, and it is looking at gender studies. There has been a lot, obviously, of feminist writing about Buffy. This is some of the best that you're going to read. There is some I have read that is super hardcore and stuff that is not hardcore enough, and Lorna seems to find the perfect balance between the two. And she has written this brilliant book that if that is the angle you're going for, this is the one. That's the great thing about Buffy Studies, is there's pretty much a book for every angle that you want to come at. I'm missing a few of them. And I apologize for that. And like I said, I think I've lent a couple of out. Here's one that I talked about endlessly at the end of our rewatch. This is Buffy Goes Dark, which of all of them, I apologize to the other authors, but I think this is the most brilliant title in the whole bunch. Because it not only refers to the fact that Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV show, went off the air, i.e. it went dark, but Buffy herself and Buffy the show was dark in season 6 and 7. These are essays that are only focused on season 6 and 7. They are only looking at the very end of the show. And there are some fabulous, I just said it again, fabulous essays in here. There is a great one on Tara and the debate that raged around Tara, and we referred to it. This is edited, by the way, by Elizabeth Rambo, Lynn Edwards, and James B. South. This is the Tara thing is great, and I referenced that in my in several of the things. Michael Adams is in here. I'm going to talk about him in a bit. David Kachemba has written one of the essays. He was also part of it. I know there's someone else, and I can't think. Oh, and Rhonda Wilcox is in here too. So a lot of our key players have essays in here, and it's just a really good look at the negatives and positives of the final 2 seasons. If you believe that the series should have ended at the gift, this is the book for you. If you believed that it shouldn't have, and that season 6 and 7 were absolutely essential to the arc and to the series, this is the book for you. It's actually going to cover both sides of it, and I think that you'd really, really enjoy this if you want to know more about what the studies and discussion were around season 6 and 7. One of my favorite people is Dale Kuntz, who also went by Dale Guffey during the rewatch. This is Faith and Choice in the Works of Joss Whedon, and it takes as its thesis the idea that Joss Whedon is an avowed atheist, and he has stated several times that he is an avowed atheist, and yet religion plays such a big part. As I mentioned in my book, a cross and holy water actually stops evil. If there's no power to those objects, if you're an atheist and believes that there's no power, then why do they stop evil? Well, it's funny. He's an atheist on the one hand, and yet he uses this stuff. So, of course, we've got Caleb on the cover, Spike, and the idea of a soul or evil and God and demons and hell and heaven. Heaven played into it. We all remember the beginning of season 6. And hell certainly played into it. We remember the end of season 2. And so Dale looks at all of these angles to show that maybe, he certainly used a lot of faith and religion for someone who was such an atheist, and she shows both sides of it. She's certainly not suggesting that he is some hardcore Christian or anything. She says, quite the opposite in many times, but she shows how faith and choice are actually far more important to the works of Joss Whedon than people may have realized, and I loved this book. I really did, and so I really would recommend this to a lot of people. One of our contributors early on was Ian Klein. He did that great essay on the Kindestad episode. Why did I totally just forget what it was called? Anyway, the one where Buffy got the flu. Oh my gosh, how did I forget one of them? Killed by Death. There we go, Killed by Death. And he did that great essay talking about how we work so hard in our lives and then usually we're shut down by things. And so how she's hit by the flu right after she saved the world, and all the ordeal in Passion. And this is a book that has been put out by Smart Pop, which is the amazing imprint that is on Ben Bella Books. And they do these excellent books that are all unauthorized, and they're not as academic as a lot of the books I've been showing you. A lot of these are essays written by people who are fans of the show. They're romance writers, sci-fi writers, people in the communities. I mean, in this case, it's been edited by Jane Uspenson, who is one of the head writers on the show. And this is the unauthorized look at Dollhouse. So again, I'm moving away from Buffy, but I decided I might as well mention the other two Whedon shows with Firefly earlier and Dollhouse in this one. And Ian Klein has his essay in here, and it is a great essay, and I saw it at the last slayage, called Scars, and he talks about the scars of the women, both emotional and physical, and it is really well done. So I would recommend it for Ian Klein's essay, but also for the rest of them. And just to plug the Smart Pop series in general, if there is a great sci-fi or genre show that you like, Smart Pop probably has a book on it, so check them out because they do great work. Oh, once again to mention David Lavery in conjunction with Cynthia Burkhead, who was let's see, she came in, at the beginning of season 3. She did Anne and Dead Man's Party and Faith, Hope, and Trick. And I know she was on there one other time, but now I can't think of which one was her week, but I know we've seen her, and she is so great. I met her at the first slayage, and she was very warm and welcoming, and she's very fun to be around. And Cynthia and David did this, and what this is it's a collection of Joss Whedon's interviews. Like, seriously, can you think of anything more entertaining than this book? Pretty much not. It includes some of the best interviews. And some of you may have been a Joss Whedon fan for a very long time. Others of you may be newer, but it contains some of my absolute favorite interviews that I had read a million times. It contained interviews that I'd never even heard of and didn't know about. And it contained quite recent interviews in there as well. So it had some great new stuff that I had not read. And I thought, oh, it's just going to be a bunch of stuff I've read. It was not at all. It was so much fun, and it's got great stuff. If you are writing a paper on any of Joss Whedon's work, this is a book to pick up because probably any of the best stuff he has ever uttered is in this book somewhere. So I highly recommend that. I do not have Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or The Philosophy of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I think it's called. It's by James B. South. It was put out by I.B. Torres. I have lent that out to someone who is working on a paper, so she has that, but it is also a great book, and I would recommend that. I also could not find my copy of Reading Angel, which is written by Stacey Abbott, or Investigating Angel. Oh no, I can't remember. I think it's the Investigating Television series, and it's called Reading Angel, and it's written by Stacey Abbott, who is a dear friend, and I have also worked with her on a book on Supernatural that she did with David Lavery. See, they all come back together again, called TV Goes to Hell, which is about Supernatural, and we just did that one last year. And I would highly recommend the Angel book, especially if you're into Angel. Stacey is one of the world's foremost experts on Angel, and it certainly shows in Reading Angel, so I wish I could be holding that up and showing it for you, but just look it up, just Stacey Abbott and Reading Angel, and you'll find that one. And finally, I was devastated that I could not find my copy of Music in the Works of Joss Whedon, I believe it's called, and it's written by Janet Halfyard, or Steve Halfyard, who was the amazing musicologist who was appeared throughout our rewatch to discuss the themes and the motifs and the music that we saw throughout. So I really wish I could have found that one, but it is purple and it's a white cover. I'm going to put all the links below here, below this video, so I'm hoping that you'll be able to find that. And now really quickly, because this has been going on forever, but I really want... okay, this is the other Angel book you absolutely have to have. This writer is fantastic. There is no writer... Okay, this is my other book, along with Bite Me. Bite Me is Once Bitten. Seriously, have you seen two more beautiful books than it? No, you haven't. Anyway, they haven't won any Mr. Pointy Awards, but they're pretty good. And now I want to talk about just a few books really quickly that were written by people who were not part of the rewatch, but I wish had been. Jana Reese, What Would Buffy Do? This looks at a more Christian element than the Dale Koontz book. This is sort of looking at the Buffy the Vampire Slayer as a spiritual guide, and it is a lot of fun. I think you would really enjoy this book. 7 Seasons of Buffy, also done by the Smart Pop people. In fact, these are a lot older books as well. This is one that I do believe has a little-known writer at the time writing about why she loved Buffy. Her name was Charlaine Harris, and it was right before she became really famous with a little heroine named Sookie Stackhouse. And she wrote one of the essays in this book about why she loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So it's worth reading it really just for that, but actually it's worth reading it for a lot more. This is a really good book. Reading the Vampire Slayer is written by Roz Cavaney, and this was probably the first, if I recall correctly, this was the first of the academic books. She's the one that started the whole trend of all these books I've just been talking about. This looked at Buffy the Vampire Slayer for the first time as a text worthy of academic study. So if you want to know where it all started, this is a great book. Slayer Slang is written by Michael Adams, and he was actually the first Buffy academic that I met. And I believe that when I was flipping through this, there's a picture in here. There's me and Michael, probably in 2002 or 1 or something, and we were at Toronto Trek, which is now known as Polaris, but at the time it was known as Toronto Trek. We were both there as writers, and it's the first time I met him, and this is such a fun book, and it talks about the language on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and of course that was what it was really known for in the beginning. People talked about his lexicon and this language and dialogue that Joss had developed to show who these characters really were, and so this is absolutely a lot of fun. Now, I think it only covers the first, 2 or 3 seasons, but it's worth reading because a lot of the wordage continued on for the rest of the seasons, and it certainly shows how this kind of language is developed. So it is great fun. I would highly recommend this book. Blood Relations is a newer book. This is written by Jess Badas, and it is, again, about chosen families in Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. In the Buffy Goes Dark book, there is an essay about family, and if you remember, in season 6 and 7, Buffy's actual biological family is pretty much gone. Joyce is dead, Hank is taken off, Dawn isn't supposed to be her sister. And so by season 7, she's created a whole new family, and they live in the house with her, and that's who these people are. They become new brothers and new sisters, and they're not so much friends. They're actually closer than that. And so that is what this book is all about. And so it's a great examination of that. And finally, for anyone wondering where that red scythe came from all of a sudden at the end of season 7, it didn't come all of a sudden. It originated here. There it is, right on the cover, in Frey, which was the comic book that Joss Whedon brought out. I think it was the beginning of 6, maybe, this came out. I could look, but anyway, and this was first released in serialized form, and then it was brought all together here in Dark Horse in this omnibus edition, which is what this is. The omnibus edition is November 2003, but I know that the show started, or the comic started long before that. And this is about a Slayer far into the future and she actually does make an appearance in the Buffy season 8 comics as well. And this is great fun. If you want to read a great comic, I loved this one at the time, and I was so thrilled when I saw the scythe on Buffy. I was like, no way! So, very exciting. Okay. Whew. And I would show you the Buffy Season 8 comics, but I totally lent them out to a friend of mine who has all of them. But you know what they look like, and we'll probably talk about them at some point down the road. So, whew, I know I've probably forgotten someone, and I apologize profusely if I did. I'm looking at all the names here and trying to think, who did I forget? But anyway, Cynthia Masson has had essays appear in a few books, and she also has a novel called The Elijah Tree. I can't show it to you, but I have often linked to it, so really do check that out if you liked her writing. I know a lot of you wrote me emails after every time she wrote an essay. I got a lot of emails. People really enjoyed her stuff, so check her out as well. And again, I know I've forgotten someone, and I do apologize if I did, but I hope that you guys buy some of these and read them, or just go to your library or do something. But if you enjoyed the discussions that we had through the Buffy rewatch, then keep those discussions going by reading the books that are written by these contributors. They put a lot of time and effort into the rewatch, and so if you're looking to give back to them, then I would suggest you go and buy their books. Thank you very much for reading along with your rewatch, and for reading along in the books. Thank you.